The person in this picture is named Gaddafi Farag Abdul Atiyah, one of the smartest criminals in Egypt. He was called the Butcher of Giza and was arrested by chance. This episode needs to focus on the details of 2020. Gaddafi was arrested by chance, but when he was arrested, he had a completely different name and personality. We will also learn a little about how and why Gaddafi was working, a simple employee and from a humble family. And because of his financial circumstances, his assistants were not able to help him achieve his dreams, so he decided he will work in real estate brokerage. He worked as a real estate broker, whether selling or renting real estate or land. In 2014, when he continued to earn good money from brokerage and real estate brokerage, he resigned from his job and decided that he would work mainly as a real estate broker. In 2015, I met a woman named Fatima Zahra, and Fatima Zahra, in her description of Gaddafi, is that he is a shy, kind and very respectful person in dealing with people. And he married Fatima. Zahra has the same name as his real character, which is Gaddafi. Fatima Zahra did not know that she was the second wife, and the first wife was married to her with the same name and character as Gaddafi. But there were wives before that, and after that, with the names and personalities of other people. We will now know them in detail. And 2015 is the date of the first crime committed by Gaddafi, and it belonged to a girl named Nadine, sister of Fatima Zahra. The second wife, Gaddafi, was in an illicit relationship with Nadine before he decided to marry Fatima, her sister. And when Nadine learned that Gaddafi wanted to get married, her sister decided that she would prefer. Correct. And she says to her family, she tells her sister that Gaddafi is not the one you see in this picture, and that he is a human being. Take it carefully. Gaddafi began to think about committing his first crime, which was how to get rid of his club. I want you to hear Gaddafi's intelligence in how he got rid of 2 clubs. This is the same way as intelligence in getting rid of all the victims. After that, Gaddafi decided to convince Nadine that she was acting like she was returning to her old dream. She herself was working in the field of acting, so she was informed that there was a Syrian producer who accompanied her who was willing to sign an acting contract with her. But the condition is that she travels out of Egypt and performs in a group of artistic works. And this is in exchange for a large sum of money. Firstly, we rejected it, and despite Gaddafi's interference with them, they insisted on rejecting it to the point that he confronted them at home, the Syrian producer himself. The producer sat with Nadine's father and her father. For Gaddafi, they are his protectors, and he convinced them that it is the opportunity of our lifetime to achieve stardom, and just what it deserves. They agreed to each other. Pressure from 2 clubs that completed the contract and traveled. And the first time they traveled, their relationship was cut off completely. Sunday, she no longer had any means of communication, to the point where she used to send them letters, except for one time when she had an injury to her leg. I think she's busy and doesn't know how to communicate because she once imagined that she left the house she was staying in and moved to a new house. There were virtually no phone calls. They qualified a religion. They began to have serious doubts about Gaddafi and his actions, and when they spoke to Gaddafi, they said that he was trying to deliver the product to its owner and return their sister. He started to show them exactly what they were like, and he started trying to call his friend, the Syrian producer, but to no avail. In fact, it was at this time that Nadine was killed and buried at the same time that it happened. The problem is with his wife's family. Specifically, Nadine had a lifelong friend whose name was Engineer Rida, and the Engineer Rida was a traveler from Saudi Arabia working there. And Gaddafi convinced him, yes, working in the field of real estate investment is possible to earn a very large amount of it. And here the Engineer Rida was convinced by Gaddafi's words and began to sell money to Gaddafi every month so that he could invest it in him. Why? In the matter of real estate investment. But the Engineer Rida, after 3 years had passed, began to doubt because there was no financial return. He was coming from Gaddafi. Engineer Rida, and the volume of transfers made by Engineer Rida Gaddafi reached £3 million. So Engineer Rida decided he is going to Egypt to meet Gaddafi and to verify for himself all the properties that Gaddafi bought and the size of the investment. What Gaddafi did for £3 million Gaddafi when he knew that engineer Reader J decided to complete the rest of the plan. The first thing he did was that he met engineer Reader at the airport and asked him to. They were going to one of the apartments that had been bought in the name of the engineer Reader. They were going there to eat kushari, which had been there for a long time, and the engineer Reader went with him to the house, and they were sitting there. It was good for the kushari, but Gaddafi had put him in the kosher before, and as soon as the engineer Rabak Kushari, who was insulting, started to feel bad, a very hard lump in his stomach, Uncle Gaddafi went into the kitchen and brought a piece of iron, which he had prepared, and the engineer hit Reader on the head more than he hurt, to the extent that I was certain that Gaddafi died. At that time, a large bag was prepared for the engineer to transport Reader from, for the apartment in which he was killed, for another apartment also. The disappearance of engineer Reader. It was discovered that it contained a number of monuments raised against Gaddafi. At that time, Gaddafi travelled to Alexandria, but when he travelled, his card and all his official papers said that he was engineer I. He lived among the people in Alexandria. His name was Mohandes Reader, who specializes in electronics engineering, and in Alexandria. I know a girl named Yasmin. Yasmin liked him, and he convinced her that he had great investment ideas. He began to take money from her so that she could invest this money with him at the same time. Gaddafi, who was impersonating the engineer Rida, was promising her a marriage. But after a long time had passed, Yasmin did not find anything serious. It happened, so she asked him to return the money to her, and that he would marry her as he promised. He told her that he did not have any money that he could provide for her, but that he would give her electrical appliances from the store for the same amount of money. He took it from her, so he asked her to take it to the warehouse in the Asafra area at night. When she went to the storeroom, he strangled her, hit her on the head, killed her, and dug a hole inside the storeroom and buried her there. Yasmin's story ended completely. After a long period, a report was made about Yasmin's disappearance, but there was nothing against Gaddafi. Who to them was the engineer. PHA, after he got rid of Yasmin, he decided that he would marry a pharmaceutical doctor named Noha. This doctor was from a rich family in Iskan, warrior, but after a period of permissibility that lasted for 3 months, the pharmacist asked Gaddafi, whom she knew was Aya Mohanad, satisfaction of divorce. Gaddafi agreed to the divorce, but Gaddafi decided to take new revenge on her. And since they were a rich and financially comfortable family, he decided that he would steal it. And Gaddafi went to the house of his mother-in-law and his mother-in-law. But he was wearing bullets and opened the apartment and entered, because he knew that they were not there. Got in, and they were traveling, and after he stole the gold and money, he disappeared completely. The first accused was Gaddafi, who was the engineer Rida, and they went. By the name of the police are actually looking for someone to file a report on the engineer, Redak. He is not there at all. Gaddafi has changed his place of residence. He called himself Mohammed Mustafa, and he filed all the required papers, so that his name would remain Mohammed Mustafa in front of all the people. I know the lady of. Her name is Enai, and the lady was also from a financially comfortable family. Gaddafi decided that he would show her purpose and that he had money. Take a group, a small piece of gold jewelry he had stolen it, and started selling it in his shop the first time. She followed a DI, and the shop owner did not detect it, but suspicion arose the second time, when Gaddafi took a big bag with him. It was full of gold jewelry at that time. The security services were distributed. This post contained all descriptions. The gold jewelry that was stolen from the house of the pharmaceutical doctor who was married to her. Gaddafi, who, his name at that time was Engineer Rida, the owner of the gold shop. When Gaddafi entered upon him with gold jewelry, he recognized the marketers and informed the police and told them that there was a stranger to me, coming to sell jewelry. It was gold, similar to the jewelry that the police had stolen. She asked him to stop Gaddafi as much as she could. In fact, the owner of the store did this until the police arrived to arrest the engineer Rida, who was accused of stealing the gold jewelry. Buyer, and Gaddafi was arrested in the gold shop, and he was transferred to the Alexandria Security Directorate, and the engineer's family was informed. Rida said that he was arrested in Alexandria, and he is accused in a case engineer Rida was robbed by the family of the engineer. They quickly arrived in Alexandria to see their brother, and they discovered that the person who had where should they visit him is Gaddafi, and who he was at the time of his arrest. His name is Mohammed Mustafa, and after thorough investigations, he confessed to all the crimes, and the bodies were exhumed and identified. Gaddafi is considered one of the smartest and most difficult criminals you can hear about in Egypt. But in the end, I will arrest him and control him with control. Execution. Hello,